Okay, this is the third session of the Masterclass. We do three 30-minute segments. It's 90 minutes altogether every single Saturday during 2022. So we've been talking about grit today. We've talked about Dr. Angela Duckworth, which is the academic expert on grit, has done more research on grit, on endurance, on a thing called TUT, time under tension. And how do those individuals how do you psychologically endure the pain, agony, and suffering that all of us have access to? But when it comes to most of us, we reach a breaking point, and then we find a psychological reason inside of ourselves to actually turn back around and be able to end that level of agony and endurance, and we quit that. And what we do, we go back to a scenario that feels less taxing. Okay. That allows us to be actually able to go back to those individuals that are more what I would call accommodating. Okay, those individuals that have also been tested and they were not found to be exceptional. And so you can go hang out with those individuals at the bar or the local church or bowling alley or I don't know, maybe the local ball field, or in front of the TV where you could sit there and be a Monday morning quarterback and tell these professional athletes how they should have seen the player standing in the end zone, or how they should have done a button hook pass in the flats and jumped out of bounds and saved the game. And yet at the end of the day, you're like, wait a second. So I'm sitting here in my living room. I'm an armchair quarterback. I'm not a real quarterback. I certainly didn't go through all the college level. I've not gone through the 10,000 hour rules of training and agony and suffering, going up the side of the summit to become a college level athlete. Certainly I've not gone through the pro level, and nor am I standing, to take the snap behind a professional line of offense to actually act as their quarterback and deal with all those decisions you have to make in real time while you have, 280-pound linebackers that can run a 4.3 40 that are coming over here to actually realign my spine. How do you measure and deal with all that? So that's why anyone that I hear that's a Monday morning quarterback, automatically kind of discount them, or many times I just kind of take personal note that those are individuals that I never want to be in a challenge with, because all they're going to do is criticize something from the sideline as opposed to being the guy that's on the gridiron, that's making the actual play, that's dealing with the chaos, and how do they figure out how to come through the chaos and make the good call. So welcome to the third session. This is the P5 program of the Rubicon that I created 20 years ago. What we do in the third session is we actually go into the actual element itself. We go into the training manual, we find out what is the elements. And today we've been focusing on grit, TUT, or time under tension. What is this magical element that some people have and other people don't? And how do we figure out how to get more of it in our life and hang out with more individuals that have that, and define those individuals that don't? And it's not that we have to be ugly or rude or obnoxious to them. We just have to remember that the 5 people that you are around the most is the average of who you become. And so if you look at those 5 people you spend most of your time with and they don't have grit, then guess what? You ain't going to have grit. And if you find those individuals that have exceptional level of grit, or a level of performance that challenges you from where you're at, then guess what? You're going to be always moving your game up. You're always going to be pushing yourself to the next level. Why? Because those individuals that are around you are always pushing themselves to the next level. So it's very important to think about that. So I'm going to share a couple of things on the other screen here. I'm having my coffee here, as you can see as well. I'm into my second thermos this morning. Kind of started a little bit late, but I want to share this on the screen. So we're going to jump over here and look at this. Is an actual copy of an ad. And it says, men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages. So you're not going to get rich. Bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. Now, who is this guy, Ernest Shackleton? Ernest Shackleton wrote a book called Invictus. That was the name of his actual ship. He was actually an explorer, I want to say 1920s, British. He'd already been an explorer. He was going to the South Antarctic because no one had actually traversed the entire ice shelf. And he ended up recruiting individuals to join his team. This was the ad in the paper there in England to find his 26 other men that were going to go with him on a ship. Now, here's the question. Would you have answered this ad? Men want it, not males, okay? There is a distinct difference between male and men, okay? Males are only different from females simply by gender. That's it. And a lot of people in our world today mistakenly define all males as men, and they are not. Men, in my definition, have a different heart and soul that distinguishes them from males that prefer to live in the valley. They are different because of the way they think, and ultimately different because of the way they perform. So what he's talking about here is he wants some of those guys that already know how to perform. And he's wanting you for a hazardous journey. So he's telling you up front, this is going to suck. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for a long time, and it's going to hurt in a very big way. And guess what? I'm not going to give you hardly any money for it. You're not going to get rich. No get rich scheme, okay? And oh God, I have to make a comment about this because too many times I hear about these different industries, these get rich quick schemes, spend $40 and make 4 million. And it just turns my stomach. I am so appalled by the number of individuals that still jump into these lottery systems and into these industries that just recruit other people, all wanting to buy a lottery ticket or hoping to get rich quick and easy. And the thing is, it's such a sham. At the end of the day, you're recruiting other individuals that are truly don't have the heart and soul to do anything other than sit around and buy a lottery ticket and hope that they instantly get transported to their summit. They become super wealthy. And here's the thing, if you don't have the grit and the heart and the soul and you haven't done the training, they've done so many studies of this. Most individuals that win lotteries, by the way, are broke within 2 years. They win multi-millions of dollars. And you're like, wait a minute, how does that happen, Steve? Go check it out for yourself. Go Google it. How many individuals, when they win the lottery, still have any of their lottery winnings 2 years after they've won it? Very seldom. Why? Because they didn't have the right money method discipline when they only had $50,000 a year of income. So all of a sudden they got $5 million sitting in their bank account, and the same poor mindset, the same mentality, the same inability to follow through on your goals that they had when they were making 50,000, all of a sudden now they instantly have 5 million, and the same problems happen again because you haven't fixed what's going on here. You haven't built your soul. You don't know how to discipline. You don't know how to have grit. You don't know how to dedicate. That's why it's so important. It's not about the money. It's about how do you perform under pressure. It is the ability to perform the common under uncommon conditions that makes or defines the human soul. It defines who you are. So let's continue to look at the rest of this. It's going to be bitterly cold all the time. And I will tell you, I haven't been under extreme levels of cold, but I'll tell you, after moving from Texas, where I was used to dealing with, 110, 115 degree summers in August, sometimes into September sometimes, and then moving to the Cascade Mountains up in Oregon, and getting up into these mountains, I still haven't found anything that's bitterly cold. But I'll tell you that cold on a long-term basis gets to you at an entirely different level and wants to crack you than heat. Both of them are miserable, but to me, cold has a different level of misery. And so I'll tell you about the cold that these individuals had here in a second. Long months of complete darkness. So being on the Antarctic, the way the tilt of the axis of the Earth, there are months as it's circling around the sun, just because of the way the sun rises and sets. You have very, very long days, like days that go 20 hours a day with light. And then you have months at the other time when the axis is moving around the orbit of the sun, that you have no sun at all for months. So can you deal with long-term darkness without having your normal sunrise and sunset that works with your circadian rhythm? Constant danger. What about that? Now, he didn't say fear. And you've heard me talk in prior events. There is a difference between fear and danger. Fear is false expectations appearing real. Fear is worrying about something that might happen but never does or seldom does. Danger is something that is real. Danger is something that is imminent. Danger is something that is going to happen. And he's telling you right here, you're going to have a constant level of danger right on your doorstep all the time. Safe, return, doubtful. What about that one? That one element right there. What if you signed up for something that said, hey, you're probably going to die. You ain't coming home. Would you still sign up? Would you still decide to answer the ad? And here's the big thing: honor and recognition in case of success. Wow. Honor. You become honorable. You gain recognition only in a rare opportunity, in case of success, in case we actually succeed, because we're getting ready to go on a journey that has the highest probability that we're all going to die. We ain't going to make it, but it's going to be a great adventure. We're not going to pay you anything for it. It's going to suck. It's going to be cold. It's going to be hazardous. It's going to be dark. Who wants to sign up? That was Captain Shackleton. That was his ad that we had right here. That's what all this is, okay? 4 Burlington Street, Ernest Shackleton, Captain Shackleton. And the great story, if you haven't read Invictus, Captain Shackleton's adventure, 27 men headed out, including Captain Shackleton. They run into a huge problem trying to get into where they're supposed to anchor. The ice moves in on them too quickly, way too far out, and begins to crush their boat, slowly just moving in, crushing this huge, massive wooden boat. And so all 27 men basically have to jump off onto the ice shelf. And they have to do this over weeks of time as the ice moves in and stop their ability to get in deeper into the actual, what do you want to call it, the inlet that they were trying to get to offload all their men and supplies. They get stuck way out on the edge and they can't turn around. The ice has already got them. They basically captured their boat. So they unload all 3 lifeboats, 27 men, every provision, all the, we call the dogs that were actually the mush hounds, I guess you call them. Get all of them off. All the stuff they put into the actual boats, they hook the dogs up, and then the men themselves actually harness themselves into this. And they start dragging these 3 boats across the ice shelf with every day, the highest degree that they get to is freezing. So sub-freezing temperatures all day, every day, darkness, bitter cold, their ship is gone. There's no way to radio for help because in the 1920s, they didn't have it. No one's coming to rescue them. They're on an abyss, an ice shelf with bitter cold, and they're running out of food. And I'm going to jump through the rest of the story so you can go read it yourself. These 27 men, guess how many of them make it back? All of them. It took them 17 months, 17 months of cold, dark hell. And along the way, they had to overcome obstacles that no one has ever been able to achieve again and replicate. Why? Because these men signed up for a certain event that everyone else would have said, that's nuts. There's no way I'm going to answer that ad. How stupid would anybody be? But at the end of the day, there was a book written about it. And in the book, they went and looked at all the journals of the men that were writing in their journals as they were going through this. And there was a great remark I saw in there toward the end of the book. And it said, we were tested and found not wanting. We were tested and found not wanting. So the key element we're talking today is about grit. I want to share I want to share something with you here on, here we go. Coming out of the training manual, okay? Fortitunae vincimus. That is the Latin phrase that came from Captain Shackleton's. That was actually, I believe, the name of his boat, I think. The book is called Invictus, which is unconquerable. But the name of the boat meant by endurance, we conquer. And we've been talking about grit, Dr. Duckworth, during the first and second session today. And we talk about how do we have this endurance? So he could have said, by grit, we conquer. How do we have this ability to do this right here? Let me give you it. How do we perform the common under uncommon conditions? Well, let's see if it'll let me do it. How do we get to that? How are we able to do that? Here's Andre Agassi. Everybody knows him as the incredible super tennis player. Okay, what you feel doesn't matter. In the end, it's what you do that makes you brave. So what we do is we live our life going up the side of these mountains, these challenges in life to reach our summits. And at the end of the day, your feelings, you have to learn how to disconnect yourself from the pain, from the sadness, from the agony, from the suffering, from the feeling of pressure, from the loneliness of doing something that most people don't do or don't want to hang with you while you're doing it. And what you have to be able to do is, how do you continue doing those things? How do you find the bravery to continue to do the things that other people don't think you should do? Here's John Eldredge. He's a great author. Read a couple of his books. The real test, okay? Notice how he defines this is the real test comes when what? All your strength is fled, okay? Meaning strength is gone. And what do you have to do? You must produce victory on this what? Grit alone. Interesting. Get out here. Come on grit alone. How do you do this? Okay. There's another guy here. There is no such thing as talent. There's only one thing. It's called pressure. So when you have to do this and you have to go through what I've shown you before is this performance curve, right? You have to go through this. We've talked about this in prior sessions. You have to get through this pain and this agony, this right here, this pushing down. It feels like it. And how do you have the endurance to have the grit that gets you to this success, and you don't know when this is going to come around? So here's President Roosevelt, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. Let's see what she has to say about it. She says, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by what? By every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You're able to say to yourself, after you've done what? After you've looked fear in the face, and you're able to say, I lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. So it is about a mindset. This is what First Lady Roosevelt was saying. You go through the horrors to do what? To be able to have the ability to say to yourself at a later time, I made it through this. I can take it again. We mentioned the comic Marvel hero, Captain Rogers, one of my favorite. And we talk about him always getting up again and again, even after he's been beat down, after he's bleeding, he's hurt, he can barely breathe, and he keeps getting back up, putting his fist back up to protect himself and saying to his opponent, I can do this all day. It's about a mindset. And so let's go down here and talk about this mindset. Because I wanted to, let's see, there was one other thing up here I wanted to touch on. Oh, here it is. Here's the great quote that comes from the Rocky movies, okay? Victory is not how hard you can hit, okay? That's what everybody thinks. It's about the horsepower. How hard can I punch? How hard can I kick? And that's not it. It's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. So what I want to bring to your attention and everything that I've studied about every person that's succeeded, the reason why I'm doing this masterclass, it's about becoming better each day. And becoming better each day is about the abilities, the growth mindset. It's about adopting something inside of you that says failure is something that we need to do often and fast. In going through project management. It's called lean system. They do a thing called minimum viable product. And what it is about is launching products quickly, very fast, knowing that they're not perfect, knowing that they are going to fail at some level, but testing it over and over again as quickly as possible to do what? To find out what's failing, to find out what's not working, to get feedback. And what we do in our life is we live our life with this idea that we have to have this perfect outcome, that we have to glide up the side of the mountain to get to the summit. And there's no effort, there's no sweat, there's no tears, there's no blood. And that is absolutely false. It is a fake idea that's inside of our heads. And we are so worried about other people's responses. Oh my God, I saw Steve fail. And then they laugh. All that is in our mind. Yes. Sometimes is it real? Do people laugh at us when we fail? Yes. Who laughs at us most? Mostly our family. Why? Because our family knows about our failings. Where everybody else, we try to mask it. But our family knows when things go wrong. They know when we lose a job, or we lose a goal, or we lose something that we were trying for. And unfortunately, failing, our families don't support us. They make fun of us. I don't know whether it's envy or ego or, I don't know, just poor training. I don't know. But friends do the same thing. And every time I have friends like that, I go, wow, that's not a friend. And I take that person off my list and move them out of my life. Because anytime someone's trying an effort and they fail, you should be the first person that's there to give them the acknowledgement. I see your effort. I see your tears. I see your sweat. I see the blood that you have left on the training deck. And you have tried again and didn't succeed. But what did you learn? You learned how you could go a little further. And that little further caused what? That caused the tears because it hurt. It caused the sweat because of the effort. And it caused the blood because of the risk. You took a hit and you lost some blood. You didn't die. In fact, I mean, I'm wearing my shirt this morning, so I'll see if I can do it. But did you die? Okay. So I got this shirt where? Okay. I got this shirt at my daughter's, let's see, was it Olympic level Ironman competition. So I went to Milwaukee last August and I watched my daughter for a half day. I watched her with however many thousands of individuals that were there at the Ironman competition. I watched her go through 3 legs of the race. She put on a wetsuit, got in a lake there next to Milwaukee, the city, and I watched her go out there and swim, I think it was 0.8 of a mile in the water with all the other swimmers. And in the middle of this, she started overheating. She got too hot too quick. So she was in the middle of the race and she had to get the wetsuit off in the water. If she got out of the water, she was automatically disqualified. So as she's struggling to get this wetsuit off of her because she's overheating, some of the, what do you want to call them, coaches or refs pulled up to her in a boat and said, hey, let me help you. And she said, no, get away from me. She had to go through the struggle, and all the rest of the people in the heat that she was at kept going. But she had an obstacle and she had to get the wetsuit off. She threw the wetsuit into the boat and she stayed in the water, didn't allow anybody to touch her, and finished the rest of the 0.8 of the mile, even though she was far behind, very far behind. Other heats had come and passed her while she was struggling to get this wetsuit off while she was in the water. She comes out of the water way behind, gets up to the cycle session, has to put her cycle gear on, has to put her what are called shoes and everything on, get her bike out of the rack, and then cycle 25 miles. 25. Finish the 25 miles, hang the bike back up, get off the cleats, put on her running shoes, and then she ran 5 or 6 more miles after that and finished all 3 of those in 3 hours and 33 minutes. I was at the finish line, took the photo finish. I'm holding her son there, my grandson, in my arms while she comes across the line. Now, did she win the medal? No. But did she win her father's admiration? Absolutely, because she didn't quit. Even in the middle of things going so wrong, she could have easily said, oh, had a bad day, overheated in the water, Dad, I had to quit. sorry if you came all the way to Milwaukee, I didn't finish. No, she had to go back after the race, after we were putting all of her gear back together. She had to go back out there to the side of the lake and find out where the ref had thrown her, whatever, you know, I'm talking about, the wetsuit, had thrown the wetsuit on the shore. She had to go back out there and find it and bring it back. Now, what that demonstrated to me is someone, and even though she's my daughter, I'm super proud of her, but as a human being, that was superhuman perseverance. That was grit. That was time under tension that she had trained hours and hours a day for months to get to that level of competition. And then when she got there, something went utterly wrong with her body. She was overheating in the water. So she improvised, she adapted, and she overcame the obstacle, but now she's way behind. And what would that done to most people in their head? I'm so far behind, my time score is not going to be great. I'm embarrassed. People are going to laugh at me, blah, blah, blah. Nope, pushed all that out of her mind and kept moving forward until she crossed the finish line in a total of 3 hours and 33 minutes. When I gave that time to a couple of my friends that were Navy SEALs and US Army Rangers, and I told them what she had done, I didn't tell them that she had overheated in the water, just her total time under tension, 3 hours and 33 minutes to swim, bike, and run. They were blown away. That was something that they were like, wow, that's incredible based on their level of performance as super soldiers. So my point that I'm making here, and we're over time, so I want to finish this, is the grit that you have in life to perform the common under uncommon conditions is about one major thing, and that is your big picture why. And if your picture why is not big enough to keep you going, then when something bad happens that is unexpected, the obstacle shows up that you didn't account for, and you realize that you're not going to finish easily and effortlessly like you arrogantly thought you were going to be able to do and reach the summit. That's when the real version of you, the heart and soul of who you are inside, shows up. That's where you get defined. That's where your measure of excellence is rated. And that's where the growth mindset becomes the key element, that failing is not failure. Setbacks are not failure. It is the point that you pause, you gather yourself, you take your deep cleansing breaths, you refocus on the bigger why, and you do not let yourself do a 180 and turn around and go down that hill and quit and go back to hang out with those people in their familiar misery. Stay out of the valley of familiar misery. It is not a place for excellence. It is not a place that honors our Creator. Our Creator is only looking for Captain Shackletons and his 26 men that went across hell in dark, cold, frozen, hungry, fatigued conditions for 17 months to be tested and found not wanting. That's why we're here. That's why we're training. And quite frankly, that's why there's only a few people that actually show up week in and week out and watch the recorded reviews. I wish there was 1,000 people on here. I wish there was 100 people on here. There's not, because there's only the few people that want to go up to the side of the hill. People talk about it down in the valley. Oh, I'm going to do this one day, blah, blah, blah. And then they go out for the first couple of days and they realize how hard it hurts, how much it hurts. And then they turn back around and come back and sit down and have a beer and cry with everybody else. Instead, why don't you cry? Why don't you shed some tears, some blood and some sweat on the side of the mountain? Because the scars from the failings that gave you the endurance to test your grit. And the ultimate thing is simply this: you refuse to quit. Not about being pretty, not about being show off. It's ugly. It's grueling. It hurts. Can you take it? Can you be something exceptional? And that's what we do this for every single week. We're here to give you those insights, to inspire you, to motivate you, to push past your limits, to do those things that are hard, do those things that find out where your edge is and find out if you can push a little further. That's the growth mindset. Push a little further, push and use the grit to find out how much further you can go. There was a t-shirt, and I wish I'm gonna actually get a new one, but I had a t-shirt back in the 80s by a company called No Fear. And they had a bunch of different ones, but the one that I loved the most was one that had, if you're not standing on the edge, you're taking up too much damn space. And I remember that, it just came back to me. So I love that. I'm going to get a new one. And maybe when I get a new one, maybe I'll put that out here as our, what we call our merchandise, I think is what people do now when they have a podcast, they have a merchandise. So maybe we'll put one out here that says, if you're not standing on the edge, then you're taking up too much damn space. See you next week.